Jumping in, the first thing is looking at the agenda for today. I'm going to give you a quick background to tell you where this information is even coming from. Then we're going to talk about why, at least from my perspective, why I'm seeing AI fail in sales, and then how we can go about vibe selling. And that is, if you're familiar with the term of vibe coding or vibe marketing, even play on words to how do we use AI to make ourselves more effective as salespeople. And then we're going to build this. And what I'm going to do is I am going to build one live, and you can follow along as we do this. Ask questions where you need to. And then how we go and turn that into a system. So something you can use in a repeatable way. And then if you have any questions at the end, we'll dive into that. So jumping in, the first thing is I've been a tech founder. I have a project I'm working on the side, potentially making me a repeat tech founder, but that was recognized as a top 2 fintech in Asia Pacific, and sold that business in 2020, and then took that experience into a VP of sales role where we grew from 1 to 4 million in 15 months. And then as a GM, I grew Fresher from 12 to 19 million in my region in 10 months, all using the same principles of revenue growth, even though one was a pre-seed to seed stage business and the last one was a unicorn. The same methodology works. And so that's what we want to build into our sales engine. And now what I do is I help people around the world to become better salespeople, to start harnessing or using AI to help make them more effective at what they do, and collectively helps people generate over 30 million in revenue. So with that being said, also, this is legit. This guy isn't just talking a lot of smack. Here are some of the results that have come out of even the sales accelerator using the system we're going to put in place within this, our AI sales coach. So Katie, she'd never been in sales before. She moved into a CEO role, and in her first 4 weeks of going through the accelerator, she generated 64 leads and 50K in revenue. And by month 9, continually doing the process right now, this is after the accelerator, 5.8 million in revenue. So a lot of what we teach in the sales accelerator is built into this. And that's a fundamental thing that I want to drill home is you can't expect AI to replace you. You can use it to make you more effective and to be able to scale you. But what I don't want you to go away thinking is that, okay, I can deploy these few tools and I don't need to know this stuff. Where this becomes effective is when you do know the underlying methodology, when you know the underlying human psychology part to selling, when you understand that, and then you layer on top the ability to create a custom GPT, to start to use some other tools like Clay, etc. Once you understand that, it becomes so much more powerful. And as a quick example, I was talking to an engineer today, and he started working with or has worked with a bunch of junior engineers. And you would think that they would, there's this, I think, preconceived idea that you give a junior engineer a whole bunch of AI tools and they can beat a senior. And what happens is they might produce a whole bunch of code, but then it often doesn't work or it's buggy, and that becomes a big problem. So you end up needing to have senior engineers go through and rewrite this code. It's the same in sales. You need to have an underlying foundational knowledge before you start layering on top some of this stuff. And ideally, we can go through some of this today, but I want you to be in a position where you can understand, okay, I need to learn some of these things, but at least I've got this framework for how I can create my own AI sales coach. I derailed, but it's relevant. And on the screen now, I can't see what you're saying, but I suspect you're seeing this picture of Stefan here. He's a sales rep that he ended up closing over 200 grand in ARR in his first 5 months of being in a sales role, again, by applying this same methodology that we're about to go through. And then Craig, also as a founder, he generated 120. This accelerator, he's a participant from the accelerator from the November cohort. So he's finished. And in that first week, he signed his first 2 enterprise deals, has another handful in the pipeline. It's a success-based model, so that could be more £250,000 in yearly revenue. On the screen, it's got listed at 125K is the total contract value. But in any case, to go from 0 to that in 4 weeks is insane. Cool about that. That's the type of outcomes that can happen. So B2B sales has changed. And I think AI is reshaping everything. How many of you get outbound emails or spam emails in your inbox? Yes. Anyone else? I see Lisa's comment. Yeah. And what do you think of the brand that does that? Often it's negative, right? If you get this automated, unpersonalized email in your inbox, probably some of the things you start to think about is lazy, done that company, blah, blah, blah. And the key things that you need with outbound is personalization and relevance. And timing really matters with that. And that's why we talk about relevance being needed. And so what a lot of these companies are doing is looking at, if you're at least in the SaaS world, they're looking at funding announcements, and then straight away they're like, it's therefore relevant that you need my solution. And they start spamming people. For all of you, it might be for different reasons. And yeah, it's not a good look. And if that is the norm, inboxes now are starting to be, I'm not even going to bother looking at my inbox. I don't even want to go there. And so you miss useful things. And so what we want to think about is, how can we stand out and be different? How can we use AI in ways that other people aren't using it? Because that'll get more cut through, because it will be different. It will pattern interrupt the prospects that we are looking to target. I know that a few of you on the call have gone through creator accelerators, and you'll understand what I mean when I say pattern interrupt. And that's what we want to do wherever we are, is we want to make sure that people stop and think, yeah, I'll give that person some time for this particular discussion that they're proposing. And so this is what I'm touching on here, which I think should be on the screen, is that where people are going wrong with AI and sales at the moment, in my view, is that the first thing is they're using AI to spam, and they're spamming at scale. And then the second thing that they're doing is they're treating it as a copywriter. And you'll see this all through LinkedIn, that it's, ChatGPT is here. There's too many emojis, there's M dashes, there's statements saying it's not this, it's this. And you can tell something that's been written with AI very, very quickly. So that's why I say it's a poor one at that. Now, I'm not saying don't use these tools to write. I think you can, but it needs to be trained accordingly. And I think it shows when it hasn't been trained. Like, you shouldn't know if a person has used AI to help them write, because it should still sound human. It's when it sounds robotic. Nah, this is copy and paste stuff. And the third thing, and this is going to be pivotal to what we're about to do, is people skip training whatever tool they're using on their company, on their data, on their offer, on their specific context. And so any LLM, a ChatGPT, a Claude, a Gemini, will spit out generic advice that they've probably found on Reddit. And I don't think you want sales advice from Reddit, right? I think you want some proper sales coaching if you're asking one of these platforms for some help, and you need to give it that context. And then the other thing is, I think people assume that they will get AI to think for them and they don't need to understand. But if you don't understand, that's when you get sent down the wrong path very, very quickly, and think something to be true that isn't. We all know, or you will probably know, that all of these platforms hallucinate to some degree. Yes, they're first off trained on potentially inaccurate information, because it's whatever's on the internet. But secondly, is they can hallucinate on top of that. And so you have two critical things that can go wrong, hence why you have to have a human in the loop to help you with this all the time. And again, we will go through this today. And then the last thing is that if you're only seeking answers, then I think it trains you to be quite lazy. And again, you're not critically thinking, is this legit? And you're in a much better position if you can understand, or if you're seeking to help understand a concept as opposed to give me the answer. You set yourself up for far more success later on. And when we start to talk about, okay, how do we use AI from a sales perspective, it is not to spam a whole bunch of people with our proposition, asking for a call, or asking them to send them bank details or anything like that. That is not what we're going to do. What we wanted to do is we wanted to support our thinking to be an extension of us. We want to give it our methods. We want to give it our process. We want to give it who our ideal customer is. We want to give it best practice. And now we're ready to rock and roll. And that's point two. It's only going to be as consistent, it's only going to be as good as the context we give it. And what we also want to be able to use it for is to pressure test whatever we are trying to use it for. So as an example, I will always give my custom sales coach transcripts from calls that I've had. I will then ask it to use my own proposal framework to create a proposal. And then if I've already gone and created it, I will ask it to score me on how clear this proposal is or how it could be improved. Again, using my own framework so that I'm able to quickly, critically think as opposed to having to do all of that manually. And then when you start to give it some of your data, it's going to be relatively unbiased, right? If you've trained it appropriately, but to make sure that it enforces some discipline in what you're doing and how you're running discovery calls and how you're presenting proposals and how you're doing outreach. And then the last thing is when you start to use this and systemize this on how you go about using AI and different AI tooling, that's when it becomes powerful, not when it's used. It comes out of the box. I've got two more points that I want to touch on before we dive in. The first thing is, what's the number one requirement for a sale to happen? There does need to be a need. And for there to be a need, and then for someone to buy, what needs to be present. So they need to know you. That is close. So the thing that I'm looking for is this. Number one precursor to, there we go. Believe and trust. If they do not trust you, they will not buy. Period. For anything, right? Sometimes maybe, was that a comment from someone? No. If someone doesn't trust you, they will not buy. So we need to build trust. And if someone's trying to comment, definitely do so. Otherwise, microphones are muffled. If you can, put your microphone on mute. That would be amazing. Might even be that mine is, or you're getting playback because of mine through yours. Thanks, team. So when we start to talk about trust, then this is something that we teach through the Snowball and Sales Accelerator, is that you need to, actually, has anyone seen this before? The 7-11-4 framework. You need, in order for someone to, in order for someone to start to trust you, to buy from you, you need to have spent, or they need to have spent 7 hours with you across 11 touch points in 4 different mediums. And it's a rule of thumb. It's not a blanket rule. If you're selling bigger deals, then that obviously increases. Selling small deals probably decreases. You don't need to have as much trust there. What we need to be able to do is create a whole bunch of positive collisions with our target customers or target prospects so that we spend this time with them, so that they start to trust us, so that they agree to a sales conversation or a one-on-one conversation with us, so that we can get to the point of being able to put a proposal in front of them and agree to do business together. If we expect, and this goes to our outreach campaigns that our sales coach should be able to help us with, and that's why it's relevant here. If we expect to be able to send a bunch of outbound emails or outbound LinkedIn messages or send some videos, and for a meeting to be booked directly on the back of that when we've had no other contact with this person, the chances of that are very, very slim. What we want to be able to do is create a reason for reaching out. We want to create a compelling reason for them to even want to reply. We want to create value that almost feels as it's too good to be true for creating something for someone. But what that does is that gets a next step with someone. That generates further trust. That means that you end up engaging in multiple mediums. And you build your way to the point of being able to do a deal, get a customer, get on a meeting to then get that customer. So with that being said, I am going to jump into presenting something else. And so you should be able to see the screen now, which is create your AI sales coach. Is that coming up on the screen? Perfect. Has everyone got access to this? It should be in your emails. But if it's not, I'm going to copy this link and drop it in here. Cool, I can see people tuning in. Lisa, you got that now? Nice. So what I want you to do first is copy this entire document. I'm also going to create a copy. Change this here. You can still see this, right? I mean, highlighting and stuff. Cool. Making sure that still in the same place. Hopefully you follow along as we go through this. If you've duplicated this, added it to your own space, what I now want you to do is come down to instructions. What we are doing through the instructions is this is something that we are then going to copy and paste into our custom GPT. I am going to put in here. Actually, I'll explain all of these and then I'll go through and I'll explain all of these and then I'll go through and actually edit this. So we need to give ChatGPT or Claude or Gemini, we need to tell it what it is, for starters. This is a basic first thing that you need to give any LLM. Let it know what it's supposed to do. We are going to let it know who to address. We're going to let it know our business name. That's the first thing we want to do within the role. And then what we want to do is we want to give it our business context. And so in this example, I've created other GPTs where someone could input this context after they start, and so more than one business could use the GPT. But in this case, you want to create this for you, for maybe your team. And so we aren't concerned, therefore, about this being usable by any other business. So if I'm creating this for Snowball, I want this to function for Snowball. I'm not going to be sharing this outside of my own organization or outside of my own team. And so what we're going to put through here is information on our business, who are our ideal customers, because that is what we need the LLM to be trained on. Now, there are some key things here that I want you to consider. So the first thing is that we want, as part of the setup, we want it to every single time analyze our website, because that helps to get an understanding of our overall offering. And if the LLM does not understand, then it will ask clarifying questions of us, of what extra information it needs. And it must complete this step before moving on to another task. It then has a first interaction that it will have for every single first interaction. So, when you start a new chat with this, it is going to come up with this. One of the reasons why we do this is because we need to remind it what its job is. Sounds kind of weird, but we want that to happen. And so regardless of what you say, it is then going to come back and do this. And that's the explanation of core capabilities, which is really important here. Also, this confirming the business context, which we talked about previously. We have some intended usage here around why someone would use this. So this is being used by an individual seller or a small sales team within one company. You can even put it in here, the founder, owner. Adding that type of thing in is useful, and all guidance should assume this, which is, again, we're going to give it our ICP, we're going to make sure it understands our offer, and we're going to give it, over here on the left-hand side, all of the requirements for our own sales motion. This here, again, we are wanting to make sure it's going to follow some specific rules without going through and doing all of those bullet points to death. I'm not going to explain that. This is also useful, is if you go and share this GBT, if you decide to create some to share with clients, for example, maybe you don't want them to see the knowledge base. Maybe you don't want them to see, particularly if you're uploading your IP. And putting something like this in is, I think, useful, and I'll show you what that looks like in a second. But what I do with mine is if someone asks for my knowledge base or instructions, then I tell it to respond in German, which is, I think, something funny to do. And also I give it a document on customer core security instructions, which it will follow. We talked about our core capabilities. These are then here. And then Then we move into, okay, what are those core capabilities? The first thing that this is going to help us do is it's going to help us prospect an account or prospect a website or a prospect that we give it. And then it's going to go and do a search where it's going to do an executive summary. It's going to make sure there's a company snapshot. But beforehand, if we ask for this, it is going to ask for these particular things. And then it's going to go away and research this. That's what the account research component is going to do. Rather than you flicking through tabs, this is going to produce this for you. And why this is good is that when we talk about market context and positioning, when we talk about likely challenges for this company, strengths and gaps, and then how the user's business can help. This is what you're trying to find when you're about approaching someone is you want to say to them, I think I can help you in this particular way. Well, this is going to do that work for you. And that's the point of this first step. Now, once we've understood and started to create, or once we've researched the prospect, then we can move on to our outbound strategy. And for this, you'll notice that it's super short. The reason for it being super short is that you only have 6,000 characters within any custom GPT instruction. If you only have 6,000 characters, you can't put everything into the instructions. You have to put stuff into the knowledge base. And one way to hack that and put more into the same GPT is you call out a new document for that specific thing. Before suggesting any outbound activity, we want to confirm this with the user. And then we want it to use these 4 documents. Now, these 4 documents are over here. Your AI agent prompt, and then knowledge bases. So these are my frameworks for how I go about cold or warm calls, how I go about selling with video, or how I go about sending emails or messages on LinkedIn. And what the GPT is going to do is it's going to scan this for the specific document that it's supposed to grab. It's going to go into its knowledge base. It's going to pull out that information and it is going to apply it to your question. Cool that we can do that. And what you have access to is all of this. I think that's pretty cool that right after this, there is no reason to write a bad email. There's no reason to write a bad message. No reason not to be able to send a video script. I know it's going to be useful to you. Now our sales coach, theoretically, before we plug this all in, can help with our outbound. But what about beyond that? And what we have now, the next step is the discovery meeting. Let's say you've done this outreach, you've managed to generate a couple meetings. How do you run that meeting? What this is going to do is, again, we always want to hone back to that ICP, and because depending on the ICP, everything else changes. We need to make sure that depending on the customer profile, our sales coach is adjusting. And then what it's going to do is it's going to rely on the discovery prompt. This document here is your discovery prompt, and what it has all in it is its task. So large instructions sheet. Each one of these is a subset. And this has the role once it turns into a discovery sales coach. It has its principles it must follow, and it has its task, and it has all of its knowledge. Therefore, when you start to upload, this is going to give you your discovery script for how you can talk to a prospect. It's going to give you the exact transcript. Bear in mind, when we go through this, there's obviously going to be hallucinations that can happen. So sometimes you might see that. Not large ones, but small ones. And we do our best to make sure it doesn't hallucinate, which I'll show you in a second. And it's very basic. But this is the best way to structure it to prevent that from happening. Now, the same thing is the case with a sales pitch. The sales pitch creation and audit, we give it the prompt and the knowledge base, which is this here. And on the back of that, it has now got the information and know-how to help you with this particular element. When it comes to creating a proposal, the same thing. And then the last part here is the non-negotiables. And that's where we say something is do not hallucinate. It reduces the likelihood that hallucination happens. So what I want you to do now is I want you to copy and paste the instructions. Oh, sorry. We have to do this first, don't we? I'm going to fill this in. I'm going to copy and paste this, and I'm going to go to ChatGPT. I'm going to create my custom GPT, and I'll share my screen as I go through, so you should be able to see it. If I change tabs like this, can everyone see this?
Yep.
You can? Oh, perfect. Great. Here we go. Here's how I can see what I'm showing. Now I don't have to ask you. So you exist to support Mike, and their business is snowballing and a sales team. Right, so that's the first bit I'm going to do. And then I'm going to come down here and I'm going to give it my website, and we might give it that my ideal customer profile. And I'm going to stay high level like this. I'm going to say we're looking at founders, we are sales people, sales teams, and entrepreneurs, and are looking of that work within B2B businesses. If you're selling a B2C product or a small ticket product, something that's $13 a month, then some of this isn't going to be that relevant to you. That's not my target market. That's typically when you start to use some of these principles. If it's costing more than $200 a month, you probably need a sales conversation. Therefore, that becomes the ICP. What I sell is I sell a sales accelerator, and this is the website to the sales accelerator. And I want to go up here to make sure I get the URL right. Come back over here. I'm going to give that. Typical deal size is, when it's not on special, is this much. And I'm going to say that currently this is a founder led. I've filled this in with information related to my business. I am now going to copy this, and I'm going to go into ChatGPT, and I'm going to click create, and I'm going to paste that in here. We have created our custom GPT, and we've pasted the instructions or the instructions from our Google Doc. We're pasting them into here. The next part is we're going to start by setting some of the stuff up to make sure that it works in our favor. The first thing is the name. What are we going to call this? I'm going to call this Mike's Personal Sales Coach. And I'm going to say that it helps me with prospect research, helps me with outreach, sales meetings, sales pitches, proposals, and challenges my thinking. Something like that. A good way to, quick raise of hands, how many people have configured their own custom GPT so far? Or quick show of hands, I should say. Go. All right, this might be new for people. Does everyone have access to be able to do this? Do you pay for a subscription within ChatGPT? I got some nods. We use Grok. Can you create custom things like this in Grok Store? The principles will still apply. Perfect. So I suspect there's some form of instructions. There may not be, because I've created these across Claude, Gemini, and ChatGPT. I find that ChatGPT is probably the most holistic. You wouldn't use it, say, if you're wanting to write. I'd probably go to Claude for writing. But ChatGPT has an ability to have more. It has more. You can upload more knowledge to it. So that's why we're using this in this particular case. I know that if you are using Gemini, why is my hand raised? Sorry. If you're using Gemini, then you can only upload 10 documents. So that's something to be aware of. In any case, if we jump into the conversation starters, for what we're trying to achieve here, there's going to be 4 key things that I'm going to want its help with. First off, it is researching prospects. That might be the first one. And so this comes up as a quick start, more or less. Research a prospect, And then the next thing that I might want to do is help me with a discovery call. And then the next thing, help me with a sales pitch deck. And then, so that might be what I start with. Those are the 4 things that I want my sales coach to do, particularly on the documents that we've got. And I'll pause there. Does anyone have any questions so far?
Mike, when you put the instructions in, did you paste that? Because I was updating mine at the same time. Did you paste that whole section of the whole page of instructions in?
Yeah.
Yeah, cool.
This is everything.
Yeah, got it. That's cool. Thank you.
So we've now got our conversation starters. We've got our instructions. One thing I have not mentioned yet, which is I think important, you'll notice through here, there are, when we start to talk about outbound strategy and we start to talk about to create an outbound strategy, make sure you use the outbound prompt, blah, blah, blah. We need to make sure that the document that we're calling out that we will upload into the knowledge is named those exact words. Yes, this is smart enough to figure out what it might be looking for. But if we upload knowledge, when we upload our knowledge, we need to make sure that these names correspond to the thing that it's talking about. So the instruction is to create an outbound strategy, make sure you use outbound prompt. We need to make sure the document is called outbound prompt. So don't rename it. Use the one that it's already called within the file that you have access to. So I'm going to come back over here and I am going to download these. How I'm going to do that is I'm going to download PDF and I'm going to download PDF and I'm going to go current tab. And so that's been downloaded and it looks like it's downloaded it as, this has been downloaded as something that I don't want it to be called, unfortunately. So we're going to rename, I'm going to rename this as outbound prompt. Moving my screens around, guys. I'm able to do this on the fly now. And coming back to the sales coach, I've gone and downloaded this one. And then in ChatGPT, I'm going to upload this. And I don't think this will come up yet, but what I've uploaded is, I can see I'm in the way of this, but the outbound prompt has been uploaded. And so I'm going to go do that for each one. I'm going to make sure that the naming convention is the same as what's in the sheet. And again, it's not going to be the end of the world if it's not, but I'd advise you to make sure that it is. So I'll move to this. I'm going to say download and current tab. If there's do the same with this. And the last one, on my other screen, I'm adjusting the names because it is coming out as this every time. And we want to make sure that the name corresponds as I said before. And now we want to download this one and rename it. Cool. So if I come back now to ChatGPT, I can then give it these other documents. And so now it has, this is call of the outbound stack of knowledge. So now what I would do, and Storm, I'm curious to know if this is similar on your screen and whether or not this within Grok, whether that is similar. But in any case, let's test this out. Let's see how this works so far. So if we go, one of the things we didn't put in here was, let's go, help me with an outbound. So that we're again prompting another thing for it to do with us. And we might even, in this case, to make sure that it comes up as one of the 4, we might decide that let's replace this. Although we know that our sales coach can help us with other things, what are the things we can be using it for most? We can still talk to it and get the information out, but let's make sure that the things that are on the screen are the things we're going to be most wanting to do. Yes, Lisa.
Is there a reason why we didn't have to personalize those 4 PDFs with the outbound prompts? Or is that because that is generic and will work for all business types?
Yeah. So the reason, good question. The reason we didn't need to personalize that is because we've already personalized it here. So we've made
Got it.
sure that during the mandatory business setup and the additional information, we've given it the information, we've given it the instruction to research your business and then apply the framework. So what you're using is the snowball and sales methods. You could by all means think that, oh, this sucks, and go and change some of it and upload that as well if you wanted to. And by all means, after this, if you wanted to, go ahead. But that's why we haven't had to personalize that at all.
Got it. Thank you.
Let's start here. Let's see what it does when we talk about researching a prospect. What I would make sure of, if it's not already set up on your screen, is with the capabilities, I would make sure it has web search, canvas, and image generation on. You probably won't use image generation, but you probably will use web search and canvas. You don't need code interpreter. We're not coding here. You notice what it's done? First off, what it has done is told me who it is, told me it's built on the snowballing methodology. It's personalizing everything to my business. It's designed for founder-led B2B sales, optimized for outcomes. It's then gone and repeated back its context. So what is the thing we're trying to sell here? And then what I need from you. I can't research a prospect without information. Give me some information. Quite cool, right? I didn't give it. Oh no, in the instructions I did say for this. Let's say my prospect, let's go, I work with a company called Contento at the moment. So let's use them as an example. Let's say that the website, and then I'm sure Vesta won't have a problem with me using his name in this way. This is now going to go research this. So what are some of the things that they have that they struggle with, which I might be able to help with? Well, long sales cycle, multi-stakeholder buying, heavy reliance on marketing to revenue alignment. You know, the crazy thing is that this is all the stuff that I am working with them on. Pretty accurate. And given the likely pain points, some of the time constraints, and then recommended strategy, doesn't need tactics and clear thinking. Now, I haven't asked it to do this, but it's already going into how do we go outbound to this. It's given me outbound ideas. That's pretty awesome, right? Again, the point of this is not to do it for you. It's to get you thinking. And then maybe one of these things you go down, you're like, oh shit, that's a really good idea. And cool. It's given us some options of what to do. And we might say on the back of this, all right, can you create like an email to VC? Let's go LinkedIn message. And I would always encourage you to give more context where possible. What it might be is there something of value that you've already created? So I don't want, and for those of you who get this, you don't want a random message. You might be, let's say I'm inviting him to this. I'm doing some other workshop at a different point in time, and I'll write that here. Workshop to help their own. So that might be something that I give it for context. And can also create as a sequence. So I could send out multiple touch points to see and see what it does. Look at that. I think that's quite cool, right? Don't be an idiot, Mike. That's probably not going to work. Do something better. And then it starts to give, here is a sequence of activity that you could potentially use. Now, there are always going to be some things that you want to change and adjust, right? So there is stuff where I probably would go beyond that. I would maybe suggest that I could add a resource here. I would never use an M dash. So I'd be changing this type of stuff out. And even when you prompt GPT to not give you M dashes, it somehow manages to feed them in. So that would be something that I'd consider adjusting as well. But you notice how if you were to ask ChatGPT to create a LinkedIn message for you, it's not going to write like this. And so by itself. So we've got now a much better framing that we can then start to use, and we can go backwards and forwards with it to improve this over time. And the more you feed it in your own environment, the better it is going to get. So let's keep going with this. And this can build a complete sequence across email, LinkedIn, and video outreach. Let's even try and say I'm going to a video. And the reason why I say in this particular knowledge base, I have this as an option is People aren't doing it. People are sending text-based stuff, whereas video will cut through and will be more likely for you to produce a meeting. Even if it's a 30-second video, then look, it's even agreeing that this is the better move for a CEO if it's done properly. And so you send it, it's telling us to send it via LinkedIn DM, and it's giving an observation straight away. And then this is giving you a script. You can go ahead and you can copy this script, read it if you want to. I'd always advise having it as a guide and being a human and picking up your phone and recording a basic video message into your phone and then sending that. That gets way better response. But you've got a 75-second video that you can send someone which pattern interrupts, because nobody does this still. I don't know why. It's a very easy way to cut through. People are concerned about automation, but I think you can cut through by doing things like this. And so we're not using AI in this context to try and spam. We're using AI to speed us up to be, oh, here's an easy video that I can now shoot and send off. I can use this as the text or as my script. So yeah, it can help with that one specific thing, or you might want a sequence of messages to send off through LinkedIn or email. There's a cold call as well. And we're able to do all of these things, right, because we have uploaded different knowledge. Rather than confining ourselves to the instructions, this is in the knowledge. Depending on what you all do, well, you might think, I can apply this to my own thing. And I can take this AI sales coach approach and I can apply it to, I am a coach and I'm going to help them with, and I'm a mental health coach, and I'm going to help them with their mental health by using custom GPT. I don't know. I'm making it up, but you could definitely do that. Okay, now it's created a cold call script for me. Now, if you receive this, if I called you and said, hey, Lisa, Mike here, look, I'm going to be upfront. This is a cold call, but it's a well-researched one. Mind if I take 20 seconds to explain why I called, and you can hang up if it's irrelevant. That is an opener. People don't do. People don't pick up the phone, but that would usually get a fine. And then you can, in 20 seconds, you can give them some context and then blah, blah, blah. And usually you get hung up on. But that as a script works far better than trying to figure it out yourself. So you now have a cold call script for you, for your team to be able to use, because they can chat to your sales coach. If it's this one I've titled Mike's Personal Sales Coach. But for you, you might be wanting to create this for your team, and you're uploading the specific knowledge that is going to be useful for you. You might go through some of these documents and say, I want to change some of this, but this is something that I know works for me and works for the people that I've worked with. If we carry on with this and we come back to this and we then want to download our discovery prompts, we're going to do the same process as what we did before. Book current tab. And to make this easy, I'm actually just going to copy the title like this. And then over here, I'm going to, the discovery prompt is uploading, and we'll do the sales pitch. And we might as well do this as well. And then proposal transcript. One thing I would say on this is I've given you access to a folder as well. This here. There are two other documents that are here which are not in this initial document that you have. They aren't in there because they are PDFs for either a transcript or the custom core security instructions, which we will put into our GPT. You should have access to this. To make sure, I want to send it into this chat to your point store. There it is. So at least it's over this. You should be able to access this on settings. It should be able to be shared. Yeah. You want to download these two things and upload them. And the reason for that is because we're using this through the GPT. I got the proposal transcript here. Now I'm going to come back and I'm going to upload these few things. You'll notice that every time we make a change, this resets because we haven't yet created it, but when you're in editing mode, this is what will happen every single time. And I'm going to, if you're doing this in Gemini, you can upload directly from Google Drive, but you have to download and upload and stuff. But obviously we do. I'm going to come back over here. I'm going to download this. I'm going to download this. And I can then upload those files. And this is all looking, I think we have all of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 of these in our knowledge base, which is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and then the 2 things that we've uploaded from those PDFs that were in this. So theoretically now we have a sales coach that is built on the knowledge of a full sales cycle of what to do at each stage. It's going to help us generate outbound comms. Then it's going to start to coach us on particular discovery scenarios. So let's ask it now to help with the discovery. Now, as it's starting to generate, one thing I will mention as well is if at any point in time that doesn't make sense, that doesn't work for me, if you tell it and then also tell it to commit it to memory, then the project, the custom GPT, will commit that to memory and it will become better at working with you on this. The more you interact, obviously, the better it becomes. What we have now is it's giving us the first interaction like we told it to. It's making sure it reminds itself what the business context is. And then it's got a discovery call playbook for how to structure that first discovery call. And so we won't have that much time to dive into the exact methodology behind the discovery framework, but this is something that we go through in the Sales Accelerator, is exactly why we do these things and how to say them. But because of that being the methodology, this now gives us the script based on that methodology. So the method it's not necessarily explained, but it's in the discovery knowledge base or discovery prompt. And then it's giving us what to say and how to run the meeting. So first off, sharing an objective, what to say. And then the next thing is, how do you set the agenda? And then the next thing is, how do I earn the right to ask questions? I'm going to then give a bit of a narrative. Why do people come into the accelerator in the first place? And in this case, it's got this part wrong. They don't have a lead problem. Most founders have a lead problem. And so I wouldn't say that specific line, but I would use this format. I'd be like, okay, most founders we speak to, they have a great product, but they have a revenue problem. They're not producing leads. They're not generating enough new customers from those leads. And then I would probably give an example of how Katie produced 64 leads and 50 grand in revenue in her first 4 weeks, and then went on to produce $5.8 million using this methodology 9 months later. And then Craig, who just finished the accelerator, generated £125,000 of new deals within those 4 weeks. So I would probably say that here. But in this case, this has given us a really cool framework to use. Here's my agenda. Here's my objective. And then if I do that, and I do that well, and this is probably a side note for everyone here, you need to control the conversation in a discovery. And you need to control the conversation within any sales conversation, really. And what we're doing with the setting context part, step 4, is we are earning the right to ask questions. And so we're giving them context, and then we're segueing into a question. In this case, before I assume any of that applies to you, what prompted you to want to meet today? That could be the segue. And then we start hitting these questions. As the person starts to share more and more information with us, we're in a better position to be able to understand, can we even help this person in the first place? And that's the really core thing. People have this conception of sales as being something that you're a pushy salesperson that trying to do a deal that doesn't make sense, when actually the actual thing of sales is to solve a problem. And so The whole reason we have these conversations is to find, does this person have a problem that we believe we can solve? That's how I structure every single one of my sales calls. Every single one of the teams that I work with that have been able to produce massive amount of revenue growth, it is purely wrapped around this idea of, let's find a problem. If we can solve the problem, we will tell them and we'll put our best foot forward. If we don't find a problem with solving, or that we can't solve, or it's not big enough, we will also tell them. And the premise is, never sell something someone doesn't need. My rant is done. And what we have here is a bunch of questions that unearth the problem. So walk me through your current sales process from first conversation to close. Now, if I ask that question to most people, they won't be able to, because they don't have a process to start with, or it's all over the show, or it's not planned and it's like gut feel. And the whole point, even if you've got the gift of the gab, is to bring this into a structure, because it will make your life so much easier. And then there's a bunch of questions here that is based on this methodology of understanding the problem, the impacts, the root cause, quantifying it, finding negative impact, finding if it's urgent or not. And then this takes you through the whole thing. Now, you might not want to do it all because you might not have all that time. And if you feed it more context, it's going to get even better. Who is the prospect? We can also, in this scenario, we haven't given it because I got overexcited. I didn't even give it context. But if you give it, who's the prospect? My prospect is Vesa, the CEO at Intento. His website is, I could do that. That might be the context that I give it. And now it's going to go and produce a discovery playbook on, or a discovery call for my conversation. It is also doing the thing that we wanted to do. Give me some context to work with. This is perfect. I think this is giving you your talk track for your discovery call. Now, again, if you're going to use this, hope you do not read off the screen. If you're going to, you would plan before the call, 20 minutes before the call, you jump onto this and you're like, cool, bang, bang, bang. I know what I'm going to do here. And then you go do it. You don't then, if you want to have it sitting there, sure, but do not read off the screen. You will be distracted and it will not go as well as if you didn't do this. So don't read off the screen. When I talk about being lazy with AI, that's one of the things that can happen. You want to learn the concepts. You want to make this help this research for you. You want it to help you with really targeted questions. This here, when I suspect it starts to talk about, in this case, it's not going into anything specific about their offer, which isn't a much of a problem because that's not relevant to my offer. But I think in a lot of cases, for some of what you guys sell, it might need to. And so you want to give it that context. So this is great. We've got a sales coach to tell us what to do. Now, what if we want to create a sales pitch? Some of the things, before I jump into that, I'm going to pause. Does anyone have any questions so far?
Not necessarily questions, but the one thing I'm going to add in is a sales script, because I run webinars, is the sales script for the end of a webinar, because that's where I get tripped up.
A sales script for the webinar.
Yeah. So when I do the whole, I guess what you're doing this evening, so I do a whole teaching about my methodology, why, and then I have an offer.
Yep.
And then I go into, this is the offer, and then in that offer, I'm obviously selling that. And then that repeatedly needs to come up in the offer section, the sales script, and I skip over it. And I only talk about the sales piece once, and I know I need to do it at least 3 times.
Yeah. So a couple ideas that immediately come to mind, Lisa, for you, for anyone here. The first thing is that at the start, you should mention it around what the core thing is, where this stems from. So to use this as an example, I've talked about where these principles come from, the accelerator. And then we've dived into this. And then I've talked about some case studies. You do the same thing. And then afterwards, you're about to see what I'm gonna suggest. Another thing that's potentially useful to you, which will be the sales accelerator kicks off in February, and I'm offering that to people who are on this call at a cheaper rate and some extra and access to a couple other things. And so that brings back to the offer. What you could do for your actual sales script here, in terms of adding this into your GBT, if you're wanting to do that, is you would create a guide on what you want to hit in terms of your hour-long workshop or webinar. You want to be able to make a suggestion of your offer in 3 different stages, let's say. I would go to This is how I'd go about creating it. I would go to Claude and I would tell it to act like a webinar marketing expert, and I would come up with a framework to be able to make an offer or make my offer really clear while I'm delivering a workshop. And then what I would do is and I would also let it know that I want instructions that are specific for an AI sales coach for a custom GPT. And then what it will do is it will go and create something like one of these documents. And you can then upload it into here, making sure that also your instructions talks about it. And then that will give it the ability to do that. That's one way. The other way is you don't even need to put it into here. You have a separate GBT specific for that particular part, creating the script for your workshops or your webinars. That would be something to do as well. Did that make sense?
Yeah, perfectly. Thank you.
Okay, no problem. So the other things that this is going to do, and I won't go through this I will go through this on another screen, is that we've uploaded our custom core security principles. We have also just seen a message on. Is this how the coaching AI websites essentially do this with prompts like this? I believe so. They use this, but they might use something. You give it your knowledge, the knowledge bases, and then they are using OpenAI's API or Gemini or something like that, and they're plugging those into their own custom interface. But we don't need to create a custom interface. We're not looking to externally use this, trying to sell this. This is for us. Use the interface we already know. But essentially, yes, still, people are just putting wrappers around this stuff. And what I've shown you, once you get proficient at creating these, you can whack these together in 20 minutes. And then as you use them more and more, they become better and better, obviously. Now, the next part, all right, I'm going to go hit create. And I'm going to say for now, I'm going to make it as only me, but you can have anyone with a link. If you've ever used any of the ones that I've created or shared, then I create some and then I do anyone with a link. But in this case, I'm going to say only me. Sometimes I might put it to the GPT store. That could be a lead generating thing. There are some requirements you have to have with the GPT store. I haven't bothered with that. I can't even remember what they are. This has been created. I'm going to go now and view this GPT. And what you can see, what we might want to do is put an image there if you want to make an AI image of yourself and then upload it. That could be fun. Now, where this I think gets powerful, and I'm not going to do this right here because it might take a little bit too long, but I want you to encourage to give as much context as possible. I mentioned this earlier. You could have a discovery call with somebody. You can have multiple meetings with this prospect. You upload all of those transcripts and you go and tell your AI coach to help you with your proposal specifically for them. And so I can't do this for you, show you right now, but I don't think that'd be very difficult for you to do. I bet most of you have call recording software. And so all you're going to do is you're going to grab those call recordings and you are going to add them to AGBT and you're going to say something like, help me create a proposal for, I'll use them again, content 2. And then what I would make sure I do when I prompt this, you still want to make sure it uses the right things. And so you want to tell it what the inputs are. And so I'm going to say, in this case, transcript 1, transcript 2. Now, I'm not going to upload these because I don't have them. But if I did, I could add another file to this to this. So it has now all of those context of those previous meetings. And I might even add here, I might say something acts as a experienced CCO Chief Commercial Officer. Your task is to create a proposal for content to so that they want to work with me. What we're doing here is the first thing is we're telling it what to act, and then we're telling it what its task is. And that's going to make sure it pulls on the right knowledge. We're then going to give it this input. We're then going to tell it some specific instructions. So even though there's instructions within this GBT, it helps to do this type of thing to remind it. So you might say instructions, assess my website, maybe it's my offer, assess their website, and then analyze these transcripts, and then use knowledge. That might be what I say. So some of the things that I want you to take away from this is that you are asking it to assess the website. You're also telling them to analyze the transcripts from the inputs. And we might even say, like, make it super clear, and then use your knowledge, which it knows what that means, to create a proposal because you've given it that proposal documentation. And then output, you can get away with not writing to AI in this way, but I find this is the most effective way to do it. You might say in this case, the output is a recommended proposal. And if you have any other context you want to add, you can add it below. Now we would do that, and then that would produce a recommended step-by-step proposal. Now I don't have these transcripts. That would make it far better. But for the purposes of this illustration, I will send this and see what happens. And you're seeing, because you haven't obviously seen on this custom GPT screen yet, there will be things that it's going to get wrong because it's got no context. It needs to have those transcripts, or at least writing out a whole bunch of stuff and give it all the emails that you sent backwards and forwards or something. And this is following what is my proposal framework. I mean, again, we go through this in the accelerator. It's starting off with at a high level, showing how much we know about content already. And usually you pull this from the transcripts that you've got or from your CRM or something similar. And then it is jumping into in this case, the recommended engagement. But you'll see that because in a lot of cases, it hasn't got the context. But if you give it the context, it's going to be much better. But the key thing is showing we understand, showing them we know the problem, showing them that we know where they want to go, and then the recommended engagement based on where we think they need to go, or we collectively agree where they need to go. And this should be based on your offer as well. Therefore, it's kind of creating your proposal for you. And then it even gives, this is all, again, based on what my offer is. And look at this final thought, CCO to CCO. Now you have this custom GPT and you understand if you want to edit this, you can come back here, click edit, away you go, make some changes. Some of the other things that I will typically give this as well as another prompt, a prompt for Gamma or a prompt for Canvas so that it can turn this into what we went through. It can turn that into a prompt that I can whack it into a tool Gamma that can then produce the proposal. So I don't have to do anything, which is a crazy thing crazy that is real. If you told me 2 years ago that was possible, it'd been whatever. And I think that's with that information, you should be ready to rock and roll and create your own sales coach. What do you reckon? Clear as mud?
It's super clear and easy to do step by step. Did we talk about Mike, the recommended model? Did you mention that? There was only one moment I had to pick something up.
Okay, we have all of these different
Yeah.
models that we can use here. I always tend to go for the latest.
Yeah.
In this case, we didn't even bother picking one. We let GPT decide what model we do.
Because it keeps updating, right?
Yeah. If you pick a model and then there's an update, it'll revert back.
Yeah.
You can always easily change this, even if I can show you. If I go to this here, this is freely available for others to use. This is my custom GPT. This is what we created, but it is slightly different with the prompts are slightly different because it's based on anyone could go and use this and it will then set context based on that individual. And when I created this, it was 5.1 was the model. And now automatically defaults to that. And if you want to change it, you easily can. Sitting on here, switch to 5.1, which is the creator's recommended model. It's not, it defaults to. But easy to change that.
Yeah. Okay.
Before we, oh, we've got a question. I got someone to step out and another recording. And that is from, okay, I need to make sure I can grab that message. 1 second, guys. And then there's a couple more things that I think will be useful to you all. Now, I'm going to go back to this. You should be able to see Canva now once again. And what is the accelerator? Lisa, you talked about, okay, how do you move this into workshop to an offer? And the offer that I have is a sales accelerator. And the thing that you've created is built on, and this is a pet peeve that I often have, is that people think, oh, yeah, I'm going to sign up to instantly and I'm going to spam, or Apollo, and I'm going to spam people with email, and it doesn't work. And what we do in the accelerator is we do 4 key things. The first thing is that we focus on, oh no, I'm blocking this. I'll move over here, you might be able to see better. The first thing is that we focus on the foundation, make sure we understand the ICP, make sure that we understand our competitors, that we map the market, and then we build a narrative around what the appropriate message to have here. And then we build an outbound system. That is not what we did today. You know how to maybe message people now. But what are the key, where does your prospects hang out? And how can we almost fabricate these positive collisions that we previously spoke about? Whether that's micro events, whether we can create micro tools, whether we can create specific content online to make sure that we engage more with these people, so that we can develop the 7-11 for, or so that we can make sure that we spend enough time with someone so that they do build that trust with us. And that's that outbound system. And then we move into, okay, let's make sure that we know how to run a discovery, a demo, a proposal. We know how to negotiate. We know how to present a sales pitch. And then once we've done all of that, we can then look at, okay, now we have a scalable method to use, because once we know, we can then also teach others around us. And also, if those people jump on the accelerator at the same time, you build this together. And what ends up happening is we build this knowledge of how to do it, is a really key starting point, irrespective of AI. But throughout this, still your question, this is a new, different accelerator. This is the original accelerator from your website. It is I would say it's the same methodology, but we've adjusted and improved it so that you can walk away from this with being able to do even more. So every time I run a cohort, I want to improve the stuff that's in it based on feedback. So what else would you want to see? And so one of the things that we really wanted to do was involve as much AI as we can to make it easier on people to implement this with their teams, not just focusing on the theoretical, this is how you do it, but actually make it easier to do this every single day. And so what it now entails, and this is similar to what's on the website Storm, is that we have these 9 live cohort sessions where, so that's in person, sorry. There's 13 on different templates people to use. There's this peer accountability, and then there's 31 lessons that I think my head's in the way. 31 lessons that are pre-recorded. You can do those in your own time. And then what we do across all of this is, okay, what tooling can we use now that we understand how to do this? What tooling is going to speed us up to make this way more effective and our teammates way more effective? And so throughout this, we make sure that you're able to use the right tooling for the business that you're leading. And then the other thing is there's this one-on-one coaching checkpoints throughout the accelerator to make sure this is working. And so when I talk about walking you through different tool set that can help with this, so whether that is creating content on Canva, using Gamma, Triggerify for seeing social signals, making sure you're prompting correctly, like what we did today, learning how to use Lovable to create micro tools that you can start to create wicked outbound campaigns that get a bunch of replies because people are like, I really want to use this tool. How you can use Clay to either find prospects, to lead score prospects, to then create again some of those outbound campaigns if you know that your offer works. Using ChatGPT, HeyReach, Full and Rich, Phantom Bust. One thing that's not on there, LinkedIn Sales Navigator, and making sure you can optimize and utilize LinkedIn, which is an incredibly powerful platform when used correctly, particularly for some of the people in this call. And that's the accelerator. When you sign up for this, you'll get 12 months access to the Vibe Sellers Clubs. This is something that a special that I released for this will go live tomorrow, but you don't get 4 weeks of access to, or 4 weeks accelerator, you get 12 months with access to that content, the people, and then every single month there are extra workshops or webinars specifically for that community, because this space is moving super fast. And when it comes to the latest ways that you can generate leads and close new business, from a sales point of view, I want to give as much of that information as I can to people rather than learning all the theory and then thinking, what tools do I use now? I want to remove that from being a barrier for you, that you can see, hey, this is the stuff that's working in the market at the moment. So you have access to that. And if you want to join this, then this is live as of right now, where there is you get 20% off. You get the snowball effect, the outbound playbook, you get it for free. You get that immediately. And then you'll also get that 12-month access to the Vibe Sellers Club. And yeah, I think there's 3 spots for that. If there's something you want to do, I would grab that as soon as you can before they're gone. But the accelerator itself kicks off first week of February. Once you go over your Christmas, go over your New Year, and then come back ready to absolutely nail 2026. Oh, does that get my head out of the way? It's quite cool that you can have yourself as a floating head on something like this, but it's also whether or not you're better off being on the side, or like as a viewer, I prefer watching someone that's like in the corner and you can see the stuff like this. But equally, if you're blocking some of the content, then it's not as ideal. Surprised, guys. I thought we would be done much quicker. As I was saying to Nikhil and Dario before this, that I was like, it'll be relatively quick. But when you start to go through it and explain it all, it does take a little bit of time. So, yeah. Does anyone have any questions from anything we've gone through? No worries, Tom. If there's no questions, then I'm going to give you back 10 minutes. And yeah, thank you for joining us in.